Before the cameras ever found him, before the red carpets, the championship belch, and the headlines that nearly erased his name, David Otunga was already fighting battles no one could see. Long before the world knew him as a WE star, a Harvard Law School graduate, or Jennifer Hudson's fiancé. His life was quietly shaped by loss, isolation, and pressure that began in childhood. But what makes David Otunga's story truly heartbreaking isn't fame or scandal, it's the pain he carried in silence. While the world saw strength, he was burying grief. While the spotlight celebrated success, he was surviving trauma most never knew existed. And when tragedy finally collided with fame, it nearly destroyed everything he worked his entire life to build. This isn't a story about wrestling or celebrity. It's about resilience forged through heartbreak and the truth. They never wanted you to see. Most people believe fame creates trauma. In David Otunga's case, trauma existed long before fame ever arrived. His story does not begin in an arena or a courtroom. It begins in a quiet town in Illinois, far removed from celebrity culture, where expectations were heavy and belonging was never guaranteed. Born to a Ghanaian father and an American mother, David grew up navigating two identities that often felt like they were pulling him in opposite directions. From his father's side came discipline, structure, and an unspoken rule that failure was not an option. From the world around him came confusion, judgment, and subtle exclusion. As a mixed-race child, David often felt invisible yet constantly watched. He stood out in classrooms, neighborhoods, and social spaces where people didn't quite know how to categorize him. The stares lingered. The comments cut deeper than they seemed. And without anyone ever saying it directly, David learned early that he would have to work twice as hard just to be taken seriously. But identity struggles were only part of the weight he carried. Inside his home, life was far from stable. David grew up watching family members battle chronic illness, emotional pain, and personal instability. He was too young to understand the details, but old enough to feel the tension. He saw how grief could drain warmth from a household, and how silence could replace comfort. Pain became a constant presence, even when no one talked about it. Then came the loss that changed everything. During his early years, David Otunga experienced the death of a close family member, a tragedy that shook the foundation of his world. It forced him to grow up far too fast. While other children were carefree, David learned how to mourn, how to suppress emotion, and how to stay composed when everything inside him felt broken. What made it even harder was the pressure that followed. Without anyone saying the words out loud, he felt responsible for being strong, for holding it together, for becoming the one everyone could rely on. That silent responsibility became part of who he was. Instead of being allowed to grieve, David learned to bury pain beneath achievement. He became the disciplined student, the high achiever, the one teachers praised and peers admired. Success wasn't just ambition, it was survival. As long as he was excelling, no one asked how he was really doing. And so he kept pushing, believing that if he reached the highest levels of success, the pain might finally loosen its grip. That drive carried him to Harvard Law School, a place most people only dream of. On paper, it was the ultimate victory. To his family, it symbolized sacrifice paying off. To the outside world, it was inspirational. But for David Otunga, Harvard came with a new kind of pressure. Surrounded by students who had grown up expecting excellence, David felt the weight of representing not just himself, but everyone who believed in him. He worked relentlessly, slept less, and hid anxiety behind professionalism. People saw confidence and discipline. They didn't see the fear of failure that kept him awake at night. And just as he was navigating the demands of academia and early adulthood, tragedy struck again. Another family loss reopened wounds he believed were buried. Once more, he was reminded how fragile life could be and how quickly stability could disappear. After graduating and beginning his legal career, something inside him shifted. Law provided security and respect, but it did not bring peace. He was successful, yet emotionally exhausted. The pressure to constantly perform, to live up to expectations, and to suppress emotion left him feeling empty. Deep down, David Otunga realized he was chasing success without happiness. That realization pushed him toward a decision that shocked many people around him. He stepped away from the certainty of law and moved toward entertainment. Not for fame, but for freedom. For the first time, he wanted to exist without being defined by credentials. But entering the entertainment world placed him under a spotlight he was never emotionally prepared for. And it led him into a relationship that would forever change his life. When David Otunga met Jennifer Hudson, both were in transitional moments. Jennifer was ascending rapidly after her breakout on American Idol, navigating sudden fame while carrying her own personal struggles. David was shedding the rigid identity of a Harvard-trained attorney and learning who he was beneath years of discipline and restraint. Their connection was immediate and intense. Built on understanding pressure, ambition, and reinvention, they became engaged, welcomed the son, and quickly emerged as one of Hollywood's most admired couples. To the public, they appeared unbreakable. But behind the red carpets and smiling photos, emotional cracks were forming. And then tragedy struck in a way that would permanently reshape their lives. In 2008, Jennifer Hudson suffered one of the most horrific family tragedies in modern celebrity history. Her mother, brother, and 7-year-old nephew were murdered in an act of unimaginable violence. The nation mourned. The entertainment industry paused. And behind closed doors, David Otunga stepped into the role of protector, caregiver, and emotional anchor. He shielded their home from media chaos, cared for their child, and tried to hold stability together while Jennifer grieved. But internally, David was unraveling. The tragedy reopened every loss he had suppressed since childhood. Still, he felt compelled to remain strong, to not break, to absorb pain without showing it. But grief doesn't heal evenly, and it doesn't follow schedules. Jennifer was grieving a loss too massive to process. David was struggling silently with unresolved trauma. Communication suffered. Emotional distance grew. They stayed together not because things were easy, but because separating felt impossible in the aftermath of so much loss. Over time, the emotional gap widened, and the relationship slowly deteriorated. Everything came to a head in 2017. What began as private conflict suddenly became public when Jennifer Hudson filed for a protective order against David Otunga. Within hours, headlines exploded. Social media passed judgment. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. The man once seen as supportive and disciplined was now portrayed as a threat. David denied the allegations, firmly and without hesitation. As authorities stepped in and an investigation followed, the narrative surrounding his life shifted almost overnight. Despite the intensity of the accusations, no criminal charges were ever filed, and the protective order that fueled the headlines was eventually dropped. But by then, the damage had already been done. In the court of public opinion, truth moves slowly, while suspicion spreads instantly. Even as facts emerged, the shadow of accusation lingered, attaching itself to his name long after the headlines began to fade. What followed was not just a legal dispute, but one of the most emotionally draining battles of David Otunga's life. The custody fight over his son was never about ego, reputation, or winning public sympathy. It was about fatherhood, about protecting routine, stability, and the sense of normalcy for a child caught in the middle of adult conflict. While talk shows speculated and social media debated his character, David retreated from the noise and focused on what truly mattered. He showed up consistently and quietly. Therapy sessions, psychological evaluations, court appearances. Every step of the process was handled with patience and discipline, even as his name was dragged through controversy. He resisted the urge to defend himself publicly, understanding that real truth would not be proven in interviews but in actions. Day after day, he trusted the process, believing that consistency would speak louder than accusations. Against public expectations, the court ultimately awarded David Otunga primary custody of his son. The decision stunned many who had already made up their minds, but it confirmed what those closest to him had always known. He was a devoted, responsible, and emotionally present father who prioritized his child above all else. The victory restored his role as a parent, but it did not erase the emotional toll the battle had taken. For the first time, David Otunga allowed himself to feel without fear of breaking. He confronted childhood trauma, identity struggles, and the emotional toll of being the strong one for so long. And through that process, he found something unexpected: peace. Today, David Otunga stands as proof that resilience is louder than rumors and strength is deeper than headlines. After loss, public judgment, and emotional collapse, he chose healing over bitterness and growth over revenge. His story isn't just about tragedy, it's about survival and rebuilding when the world thinks it already knows you. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard. Thanks for watching.